here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, a friendly reminder, you do not have a vocab quiz tomorrow. You do have a test on Thursday, 25 questions on multiple choice. You have a focus and a vocab due on Thursday. I will say, I do think the president has a lot of content. So we are going to move pretty quick today. I know, shocking. How fun. All right, here we go. So yesterday we started talking about the presidency. Who can raise their hand and tell me which U.S. president is going to increase the power of the executive branch more than any single president? Jimmy? Jackson. After Jackson, what branch is going to assert their dominance back into the preeminent force? Annie? The legislative branch. Who is the most powerful of the three branches? And why, Grant? There you go. Now, yesterday we started talking about the impact of it. We started talking about the precedent. Now, the executive branch does not have a ton of power in the Constitution or many delegated powers. Who can raise your hand and tell me why the Constitution does not have that many delegated powers? Desmond?
Because they were scared of other people.
Yes, and who's they? Founding fathers, and they have a really hard job of trying to figure out what a president is. Why, Desmond? Yes, they've never seen one before, so they're very hesitant. But there is one thing, Sydney, that the president is 100% responsible for, and what is it? What is under their domain 100%? It's a delegated power, and it's one of the few things that is definitively theirs. Help her out, Katie. Yeah, foreign diplomacy. So anything that's involving other countries, it falls almost exclusively to the executive branch, and it is the president's decision on what to do. On Sunday, there was a big interview on 60 Minutes. Did any of you watch? No? Okay. Well, the president, Joe Biden, did an interview, and there are three major scandals. Not major scandals, but three big, very controversial things that he said. And one of the things he said is that if Taiwan is invaded by China, the United States would respond with boots on the ground. Now, does he have the right to say it as the President of the United States? Do we typically say those types of things? No, because we don't want to put American servicemen and women definitively on the table as chips in some sort of political game. It's not really a great look on multiple things, and we usually stay out of the Taiwan game. But does he have the right to say it? Can any branch do anything about it? No. Other ways we can check and balance, but the president can do foreign diplomacy as they please. Okay. Yesterday we got to powers of the president, yes, and we got to war clause, yes? Perfect. War clause is a limitation of the executive power. Now, let's talk other powers of the president. Brooklyn, are you okay?
Yeah. I was confused for a second.
From what? What are you confused about, Ryan?
It switched, but.
Yes, it does. I have a clicker. That's why it switches. We're good? Alright. So, here are powers that you need to know. Did we get to this yesterday? Yes. Perfect. So we know that the President of the United States can make treaties, but it's typically called an executive agreement. Yes, we're going to talk about that in more detail. You do need to know that ambassadors, judges, and high officials, I'm talking the head of CIA, FBI, all of those are appointed by the President, but are Senate approved. Everyone's clear on that because that was a big test question. Legislation, President can veto, but cannot create. Here we go. Compensation, qualifications, let's do it. So the President of the United States has to be 35 years old, has to be a citizen, a natural born citizen of the United States, or born to American parents. Okay, so they have to be a resident of the United States for more than 14 years prior to election. So if you were born in like Nebraska and then your parents picked you up and moved you to England for the next 30 years and you lived in England, even though you were born in Nebraska, can you be president on your 35th birthday? No, because you have to be living in the United States for a minimum of 14 years before you become president of the United States. So just because you were born here but you live somewhere else does not give you the right to be president. Jordan.
This is a really deep question, but what if one of your parents is a U.S. citizen and the other's not, but you're born abroad? Are you a citizen?
No, you cannot be president then. Both of your parents have to be U.S. citizens, I think. Now, which lineage of what president is most controversial? Obama. But he's really not controversial when you look at the actual laws. He was born in Hawaii. His father is, I think, Nigerian. Don't quote me on that. But his mother is an American citizen, and he was born in the state of Hawaii. Okay. Benefits. So these are the perks of being in the job. $400,000. Is that a good price for being the top executive? No, actually, it's kind of like minimum wage, kind of in your top 400 major companies. So it's not great. I mean, hell yeah, are you kidding me? I make $50,000 a year. Holy shit. $400,000? Oh my god. That would make dreams come true, friends. However, for a president or someone of that caliber, just keep in mind, most of our presidents are going to top tier universities with top tier talent, which means they're being exposed to other opportunities. So $400,000. Are presidents becoming presidents to make $400,000 a year? No. If your parents and you live in a big house, your parents are probably making more than $400,000 a year. It's not that uncommon, especially here in South Tampa. The average salary for someone in their mid-40s and 50s in South Tampa who live in the region are typically between $350 and $250 and $350. So $400,000 isn't really that much of a big scale. Keep in mind, your girl makes $50. So if it sounds a little crazy, like $400,000 isn't that much. Keep it in perspective. Okay. Tax-free expenses. Now, when Jefferson became president, he absolutely hated being president. He loved writing the Declaration. He loved being the governor of Virginia. He loved so many other things, but he hated being president. He hated being president because he went bankrupt after becoming president. Because he's the third president. When you became president, you had to pay for all the parties, all the food, and all the wine that was consumed at the White House. What happens all the time at the White House? Parties and festivities and gatherings of people because they want the publicity, so people will write newspaper articles about what is happening. Well, Jefferson, who was one of the wealthiest Americans in America, almost became bankrupt. So after these pretty well-founded claims of I'm spending all this money on American diplomacy and inviting and hosting these guests, and I'm not getting paid for it. So today we subsidize the president's spending. So the president gets a budget of money for clothes, for foods, for parties and events. But if you go over those budgets, you are then responsible for it. And every single president spends their money in strange ways. Some people do kind of wackadoodle things. Some people spend them in like totally weird things. Like Jackson really loved cheese and spent an exorbitant amount of money on cheese. And all these things are tracked. Reagan, I think it was all about the jelly beans. That was like his thing. He spent over like $4,000 in just jelly beans. And you can't gift the president jelly beans, they have to pay for it. So the US dollars were paying for jelly beans and then like in this insane rate. I think one of our presidents was obsessed with Kit Kats, which I totally get because I love Kit Kats, my favorite candy. Maybe secondary to peanut butter M&Ms, not peanut, but peanut butter M&Ms. They're the best. Anyway, moving forward. You are given Secret Service for 10 years unless you continue to get threats on your life. If you, as a former president, continue to get threats on your life, you get Secret Service longer. Isn't that nice? Yeah. Secret Service is going to protect you and your immediate family, but not all of your extended family. And that has been a regulation change since the Trump administration. Because Trump has a bunch of children, and it made it very expensive for the Secret Service to regulate them all and monitor all of them and protect them. It became very, very hard and very cost inhibitive. So they've regulated it back just to the major family members would get it since then. Now, vacation homes, Camp David. I hear it's fabulous. They don't really show that many pictures. Why don't they show that many pictures of Camp David? Yeah, well, it's private residence. It was gifted to the United States. But why is it also top secret, Katie? You don't know where it is. We kind of have an idea. Like, it's completely military blockade all the time, even if the president's not there. Because they don't want you to see what the inside looks like, so you can't kind of plan out an attack or anything like that. So there's not a ton of photos. There are some formal photos. Like, presidents have met there. Like, there's something called the Camp David Accords. that happened in the 1970s. Jimmy Carter invited foreign dignitaries to Camp David to work out a nuclear agreement, which was pretty damn effective since it stopped the nuclear war. So we have things like that, but there's not a ton of pictures of it because you're not supposed to see it. Yes. I actually am not 1,000% sure. I think it's in North Carolina, but that could just be me completely making it up. It's like you know, like it's a thing. Like you can type it into the internet and it'll pop up. Like this is where it's located, but there's not a ton of information about it because it's trying to keep the president safe. And yeah, pretty cool. Powers to persuade. You guys literally have nothing else to ask about the president and all the money that they make and not make? Okay, we got off into weird sidetracks earlier, but 8th period, you're 8th perioded. Why would you ask questions? Powers to persuade. Here we go. What do you got, Riley? It depends. If your life is under like direct threat, then they will. Like for instance, when Pete Buttigieg got left, and then we had a breakdown of pretty much everything because he was on maternity leave for literally like 3 weeks. He has gotten so much hate mail. He does get Secret Service. People have really threatened to kill him, and it continues. So he does get Secret Service because people want to threaten his life. It's a really big question. And I just don't have the energy today. So it depends. If you were in high tiers, oh my god, that freaked me the hell out. Oh my god. Whew. I looked out my window and there's someone there. Yeah, they're doing the sales on the pavilion, and there's literally someone like directly in my window, and it literally just scared the shit out of me. Sophia.
The president can be arrested, right? Like if he commits murder?
Yes, but I mean that's like such a big question that this non-lawyer was like, why would they do that? Jimmy.
Does the vice president get Secret Service?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Vice President gets Secret Service. Pelosi gets Secret Service. Schumer gets Secret Service. Like your big top tiers ones do, which are provided. And typically when they leave office, those lower offices, they get pulled pretty quick. It's typically the president. Like Obama will have his for a while. Trump has Secret Service, all that stuff, for a while as well. What do you got, Jordan?
Does the Secretary of State?
Well, no, because they have cooler shit. They have armed, top tier army people, and I don't know what they're. Yeah, it's super cool. Because like Secret Service dudes are usually dressed in like black suits and stuff. These guys are in like full military uniform at all time, and like they can kill you in probably more ways than Secret Service dudes can.
Military escort.
That's the cool shit. Yeah. So no, Secretary of State typically gets armed services because they're in charge of the armed services. So that they get like the crazy, like super cool shit. Right? What do you got, Katie?
How much does the first lady get paid?
That's such a wonderful question. I don't think she gets paid, or if she does, it's like super minimum, because the position of the first lady really gets called into question under Hillary Clinton as the first person to really expand it. Pretty much before you were just supposed to be cute and smile in all the photos and do like stupid pet projects. Hillary Clinton is really the first lady to actually take that position and really use it as not a weapon but a tool to do change. And obviously we've seen since then, pretty much every first lady has kind of taken a more active role. Even though Melania has kind of stepped back, she still had her pet projects that she was still kind of doing, which is ish to the Hillary model. But most people use it as a jumping off point. But typically you do get a budget to fill your office. So you do get, they do have a budget of something. So they do get paid for something. I don't know how much it is though, because I haven't had to make a PowerPoint about the vice president. What do you got, Riley?
So you said like the immediate family gets Secret Service?
Yes.
So like, does that mean that the kids and all
Yeah.
that presents, can they like, let's say they have young kids, can they go to public school and all
Okay,
that? No?
so the funny thing is about Washington is that there's essentially one school in DC that all the top tier government sends their kids, including the President of the United States, if they're aged for that school. Does that make sense? Like your Secretary of State, all of your major senators and stuff like that, they're all sending their kids to one school. And it's because they can actually make that school kind of like a fortress. Think about it. If all of the top tier government officials were all in one school, what would be the greatest school to take over and use it to weaponize that one school? So it is essentially shut down by the Secret Service, run the security of that school, and it's essentially kind of protected. You not only have to be smart enough to get in the school, you also have to pass a background test where you actually go through the top tiers of government security where they have to clear your family for you to actually be enrolled in the school. So it's like a big deal. So it's a super prestigious school and you have to have crazy background checks.
Yeah, like a football team and stuff.
What, you thinking of signing up or something?
I mean, they're gonna-
I would assume so, yeah, I think so. Cause like Sasha, the younger one, what's this younger one? She was like on the cheer team or some shit. Like she did some cheer thing in school. So I think so. I'm not really sure. Sophia?
It would be kind of controversial because if it's from all the top like government officials,
Well, it's also a security
I
thing.
mean, surely wouldn't there be like some?
Tom Brady's kids are not here at Plant High School because of the security. They don't want access to these kids to be given out to just random people. By doing a private school, they can pull out. So if Jordan is harassing Tom Brady's son for some reason, in a public school, there's nothing I can do about it, really. I have to catch her bullying and doing all that stuff. But if she's just like snapping photos and posting online, there's not a ton we can do. In a private school, what can we do to Jordan?
The penalty.
Yeah, we can throw her out and say, leave the Bradys alone. Okay? That's the big thing. That's why not a lot of celebrities' kids come to Plant High School who live in the area because it's a publicly funded school. In a private school, they can kick out kids who annoy their kids. Does that make you sad? Didn't you wonder why more celebrities don't come here? No? Okay. 3 audiences. You need to know the president, when he speaks, or she, that it's going to fellow politicians, it's going to other activists and office holders outside of DC, and the public. Okay? So those are your 3 major ones. So, if Biden, in that big 60-minute interview, he was talking about how he wants to pass legislation about stopping the selling of assault rifles, who is he talking to? He's talking to fellow politicians. Okay? He wants to pass a law that will ban assault rifles. Okay? When Biden, during his 60-minute thing, which is causing quite the uproar, he is mentioning that Democrats around the country have to motivate the base to get in there on the basis of Roe v. Wade to stop legislation against abortion. He's talking to who? Party activists and office holders throughout the country. And then, when Biden says that the pandemic is over, who is he talking to? The public. And these are the major aspects of how a president speaks. These are the 3 major avenues, right, Sydney? Which one do you think is the most influential?
The public,
The public. Why?
because that's like the people that, like it's the people. So
Well, yes, they're people. If not, they'd be animals.
because that's like the most.
Motivating electorate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when he's talking to the people, or any of these things, it's called the bully pulpit. Anytime he talks to these 3 audiences, the bully pulpit. If Biden wanted us to all talk about one thing, could he make an announcement right now and change the conversation across the country? Yeah, absolutely. If he wanted to interrupt Sunday night football and address the entire nation, could he do it? Yes, absolutely. If the White House calls CBS, NBC, all of those things and says, I need to address the nation, out of respect for the office of the president, what do? They cut the feeds and they cut to the president. Haven't you seen? Trump did it, I think, 2 or 3 times, held a special announcement on camera where I think once he was sitting at the desk and the other one was behind the podium, yes, at the sign of the United States, and he addressed the nation from behind in the Oval Office and from the podium to make an announcement. This is really when COVID was breaking out, yes, and things were starting to shut down. Trump addressed the nation twice in emergency session, which means he cut in during other programs to address the nation. Riley.
Do the to, or is it just?
It's more of like a respect kind of thing for the office of the president. Now, during the COVID pandemic, especially in the early days, Trump was holding sessions where they would have professional, experts come in and present. And at the beginning of like the real lockdown, I'm talking peak pandemic, they would cut to these presidential panels where experts would come up and speak about what was happening. Every channel honored it, which is why you probably have these memories of like watching these panels of people, because everyone cut to it. After a couple weeks of the same thing, what did the channel start doing? Stop doing it. So they'll honor it, but they're not going to just continue doing it. And it was one of the things that really upset Trump is when the channels stopped airing them, because, for multiple reasons, but that upset him. But for the first couple weeks, he was getting that full thing. That's the bully pulpit. If the president wants us to hear him and see his face, or her face, can they? Yes, and that's the power of the president. Okay, what do you got, Grant?
Is there a reason for being called bully pulpit?
It's called the bully pulpit because I can force you to listen to anything I want to say, and you have to deal with it. A bully pulpit, it's actually a church reference. The bully pulpit is when the pastor stands in front of a church. I think this is the origin, where they can condemn the whole church and call out any single person and address a situation immediately. So I believe it's a church reference in its origin, but essentially the president can change the conversation to anything they want by standing and forcing the country to hear what they have to say. Think about it. What other person can do that? Command complete and utter stop and addressing. Not many people. Okay, popularity. So let's talk about popularity of the president. When is the president the most popular? Think about it. When is the president? I don't care what president you're looking at, okay? What president, when is that president going to be the most popular? Nick? Right as they get elected, absolutely. So write that down. You need to know the president is the most popular right after they get elected. During that time period, is Congress going to mess with them? No. Why? Yes, guys. If the president is popular, Congress is going to go along with it. Okay? Why? Why? Huh? They're the voice of the people, but if the president is popular, then the people like the president, right? So, if the president is popular, Congress is going to be more agreeable. Now, the last two presidents have been under 50% pretty much their entire presidencies. Biden, Trump. Okay? With that being said, has Congress been helpful to both Biden or Trump? There's been some legislative wins of late, but overall no, because the president hasn't been as popular. Now, at the beginning of the Trump presidency, that was his most popular. At the beginning of Biden's presidency, that's when he was most popular and was getting the most support. Sophia?
They were popular at that point because they hadn't really had time to do anything stupid, right?
Well, anyway, it's the rush of, election. Everyone's excited, been cheering these people on for almost 2 years. They're finally in office, and it's like that warm, fuzzy feeling, that honeymoon feeling.
They also haven't made any actual decisions yet.
Well, yeah, because it's just early on. Now, it is important for you to know the president is the most popular as soon as they get into office. The president is going to lose the most support during the midterms. So, Joe Biden has only been in office for 2 years, coming up on 2. He is 50 days out from his midterms, okay? Typically, the sitting president always loses in the midterms. So, the sitting president is a Democrat, so what party is supposed to lose the midterms? The Democrat. Why does the president bear the burden of losing seats in the midterm? Why, Caesar?
Because they dictate if the party is popular.
Kind of, but why do they always practically lose in the midterms? Think about it logically. It's not an abstract thing. Why, Alex? We're talking midterms, Alex.
I don't even know what midterms are.
Midterms are, President Biden has a 4-year term. We're 2 years in, midterm. Now we have our first election during his administration. Historically, and things are queuing up. I'm telling you, this year's midterm, which is 50 days away, or 49 days today, is going to be weird because of the Roe versus Wade. It was supposed to be a red wave because in the midterms, the lower party always rises, yes, okay? It is going to be a little bit more of a wash. That's what everyone is arguing because there's been a whole lot more momentum by Democrats to get out there and vote. So it was supposed to be a red wave, but it's probably going to be more purple. Historically, why do the losing party gain more seats during this? Sophia?
Because the part of the Senate ends up for
No. Guys, who does everyone blame for everything? The president. So in a midterm election, can you hold the president accountable? Not really, so you take it out on their party. Okay? Inflation right now is 8.3. It went up from last month from 8.2 to 8.3, which is a big deal because last month Biden was supposed to pass all this stimulus stuff to help cut down inflation. Did it work? Not off the cuff, which is another big scandal of his big interview. With that being said, can we get Joe Biden out of office? No, but if you're frustrated with Joe Biden, who are you going to vote out? The Democrats, right? That's how it works. We're frustration with the president. Now, is inflation entirely Joe Biden's fault? No, of course not. Okay? Was Obama's fault every time you had a bad lunch experience here at school? That was one of my favorite things. Is like, thanks Obama. It was literally one of my favorite things. But, yeah, they were trying to get you to be healthier. Okay, that's why they did. Some people in my last period were very cranky about it. Still to this day. Okay. Now, with that being said, the midterms is typically a losing battle for the president because people take it out on their party, not on the president. When the president and during re-election, write this down. During re-election of a president, you typically see the party of the president surge. Why? Because people are excited to vote for the president, so they vote for all along the party lines. Typically. So, during presidential elections, presidents typically get full support of the party. Okay? Because if you're going to vote Democrat on president, you typically don't go Republican down the ballot. You typically go Democrat all the way down or Republican all the way down. You don't typically go back and forth. Now, of course, do people do? Of course. But is that the majority of people? No. Alright. So, couple things you do need to know. A president cannot offer electoral awards. You cannot say, if you do this, I'll get you reelected. You cannot say that. You cannot buy votes. Okay? Now, popular presidents can help you get elected. Like, I'll tell you right now, on I-4, there's a ton of signs of politicians, like local politicians, who are standing next to Donald Trump on their campaign signs. Why? Yeah, because Trump is super popular amongst Republicans in Florida. So if you see Trump and they're just sitting there like cheesing and taking photos together, then you're going, if you like Trump, you're going to vote for that guy. Okay? No president has ever done more with an endorsement than Donald Trump, right? He picks his candidate and he goes and argues and does all the things Trump does in order to help them get elected. Okay, that is a huge thing. Biden is not known for that, which is both, for the Democrats is a huge issue. Okay, now, Congress typically doesn't challenge the direct causes of the president. Congress typically doesn't choose the direct projects of the president. Every president has pet projects. Like, what was Obama famous for? Obamacare. Yeah, of course. Obamacare is his big thing. Okay, healthcare for all. Congress didn't really go after it too much during it. Okay, because of how popular it was, and it was the president's major focal point. Because what could Obama do all the time, every day, all day? Talk about Obamacare, which makes it even harder to change people's minds against it. Okay, decline in popularity. Presidents lose popularity with major events. Okay? put W up into a very popular place. This is how he gets his highest approval numbers is after 9/11 because he really did unify the nation. He went to the World Trade Center 2 days after the towers fell and did this amazing speech and got the American people all rallied up together. However, what major event is going to crash George W.'s popularity? Huh? So the Iraq War is not super popular while he's in power, but it becomes significantly less popular once he's out of power. Okay? Because the longer the war goes, the less popular George W. got for a long, long time. Katrina, yes, New Orleans, flooding, all that stuff, that is going to tank his ratings. Now, since presidency, George W. has gotten more popular than when he left office. Okay? Now, Nixon is obviously going to be tainted because of Watergate, Truman, the Korean War, LBJ, the Vietnam War is really what he's remembered for. Okay? Bush is all about economic recession that's going to occur under his time. You typically think of the worst things about a presidency is what's going to hurt, and it's typically major events. Is it easy to see what these events are going to be? Short term or long term? Long term. Like for the Trump presidency, it's hard to really say what exact event. We can all say COVID is not going to help any president. Can we agree? Literally no nation has gone unscarred. No leader, except in a very few countries, have considered to have managed it well. And that's not a dig against Trump. That's across the board. It was so unprecedented. However, big picture will allow us to assess. So on our more recent presidents, it's harder to say what event is going to cause it, even though we're a couple years out already. Power of saying no. The president has two ways to say no. First of all is vetoes. Okay, the power of veto. Okay, it can either sign or veto legislation. How often does the president veto? No. It's not that common. A president may do it once in their presidency, but it is really uncommon. Why? Hold on, I see you, Dave. No, I'm not here. Why is it really uncommon to veto legislation? Ford.
Is it because if it went all the way through Congress and they veto it, then there's no override it?
Well, yes, that's saying that there's immunity, but typically they're not going to pass something through the House and the Senate that isn't already kind of approved by the president in some kind of big context, because you don't want to spend absolutely 9-10 months trying to pass legislation for it to be shot down on a whim. Yes? Okay, so they're going to try to plan. David. Yes, they can do 3/4, have to vote, and over. David, let's just be completely frank with each other. How unified is Congress? How often can they really pull themselves together and get something through? A lot or very rarely. And it's just by majority. So as long as they get 51%, it clears with legislation. To compensate for a veto, they have to get 3/4 or 75% of Congress to agree to it. That's a lot. And keep in mind, there's so many factions inside Congress. It's very, very rare that any bill even passes without trying to overvote 60% is like insane. Okay. What do you got?
Did the president suggest legislation like plumbing?
Just the State of the Union is where they address. Annie.
Our president also not veto a lot because Congress is like the voice of the people, so they can just.
Yes, there is that, but we have some presidents who have vetoed more than others. But a lot of it comes down to Congress doesn't typically put stuff up, because remember the majority party is in power, and a lot of the time there is some alignment between Congress and the White House, so there typically is some relationship. But they don't want to work all this hard to get it shot down by a president. Like Bill Clinton vetoed something that came out of the Republican Congress. I can't exactly remember what it was, but he vetoed, and that was a big deal. He did this whole big dramatic tear the thing up and stuff like that, and put it back in the folder. Well, there's video cameras, yeah? You can do it. Like, do it there, I guess. Right. a veto message. Okay? A veto message is a little bit different, and there is a test question on it. A veto message is when the president to Congress stating he will not sign a bill, and it has to be signed within 10 days for it to actually go into law. So a veto message is the president saying, I will or will not sign. Okay. Nice. What do you got, Jimmy?
Like he says that so Congress doesn't waste their time.
Or she, but yeah. Sorry, if we can't be something, we don't see it, right? What do you got, David?
Good afternoon, Fred. I'm Kelsey, part of the announcement. Attention wrestlers, please make sure you are completing your athletic career paperwork for wrestling.
Yeah, of course.
With
Yeah.
only that are
They know that there's a bunch of
finalized
bills and the committee, yeah, they absolutely don't like to pass that, which is why it's typically dies and the
At
conference.
this time, needed announcement. Based on Beacon High School.
Okay, so, a pocket veto is your other type, and there is, I think, 1 or 2 questions on your test about a pocket veto. It's when a bill fails to become law because the president did not sign it within 10 days. So, has the president gone out of their way to veto it? No, but have they gone out of their way to make it law? No. It's essentially like lying by omission, right? Like if you tell your parents like you're going to a friend's house, but your parents hate this one friend, and you're like, no, I'm gonna go to Katie's. But the friend they hate is also going to be there and you just don't tell them? Yes? That's lying by omission. It's vetoing by lack of follow through. Because every law has to be signed by the president to become into law. So by not signing the law, it essentially is a veto. Which one is more definitively aggressive? Veto or pocket veto? Veto. So if something is popular, but the president doesn't want to do it because it goes against his party's stance, they'll do a pocket veto. But if we're in a divided government and the majority party of Congress passes a bill the president doesn't want, then he'll do an aggressive veto where they tear it up and like, no way, slam the file folder and say, no. And then all the cameras will be like, click, 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 how exciting. Sophie. Ah. Yeah. Yeah, but you still gotta get 3/4 of the whole population to do it, and how often do they agree on anything? You can't get 3/4 of Congress right now to agree on a pizza. Do you think you could? Because I'm a big fan of pineapple pizza. Well, I love Hawaiian pizza. I love it. I don't care if it's controversial. I love it, and it is my favorite.
Why was he checking the pizza?
No, I want the pineapple and I want the ham.
You guys are being extra.
Huh?
You guys are being extra. Just keep it plain or something.
Ew. I mean, I'm a big pepperoni fan as well. Like, keep it classic. But all-time favorite is Hawaiian. Eddie and Sam's Hawaiian is bomb, by the way. Anyway. Questions, concerns? We covered a lot. So tomorrow we'll pick up on pocket vetoes. And we'll move kind of quickly because we have a bunch to cover. Yes, ma'am.